Hey everyone, how's it going? So now that we've got the buttons working as expected, it's time to take care of this situation here where the retweets aren't showing up properly. So the reason they're not showing up properly is because at the moment our code looks for the content of the post. Now retweeted posts don't have content. Instead what they have is retweet data. Now the retweet data property just contains essentially the post that was retweeted, and then we're going to use that to get the content. But currently our code just looks for content, and in a retweet you won't find it, which is why you're seeing undefined. So we'll fix that now. But we'll go back to common.js. And the first thing we'll do, I did realize I forgot to do a check for null here. So we'll just do a simple if statement at the top, and we'll check if post data is null. Then we're just going to return alert. Inside there we can just put post object is null. So this will just help us going forward if we accidentally pass some null value into this. Obviously, it hasn't been a problem up until now, at least for the most part. But once we start handling like replies and stuff, we might end up accidentally passing null into there. So this will just let us know if we see this error exactly where to look. So anyway, back to the retweet stuff. The first thing we want to do is check to see if it is a retweet. So we can say var is retweet, and the value of this is going to be based on whether we have the retweet data property or not. Remember the post schema that I just mentioned has this retweet data value. If this is there, it's a retweet. If it's not there, it's not a retweet. So we'll say is retweet equals post data dot retweet. Man, I can never spell this word. Retweet data is not equal to undefined. All right. So this means that is retweet will be true or false based on whether it's a retweet. And just to make sure it works, I'll just console.log that and I'll write is retweet. You don't have to copy this if you don't want to. I just want to verify that it is working. So when I refresh the page, I'll check the console. I'm seeing 2 true ones and 11 false. I'm wondering why I'm seeing 2. I think there's supposed to be 3. Let me just set a breakpoint in there just to make sure this is all working as expected. So I'll go to the is retweet part and I'll set a breakpoint. Let's do it on the console.log. If I refresh the page, we get the first one is true. It's a retweet. Now, did I do that? I'll press play again to go to the next one. This one's also true because it's a retweet. Okay, this one is false. Now, why is this false? I thought this one was a retweet. Now, this one doesn't have any like retweet data or content, but I think what this might have been, I think this might have been one of the ones that got inserted before we had it working properly. I think it might have been like half working at this point. So what I'm going to do is just go and delete that one. So I remove the breakpoint and I will just press play to let them all go through. And I'm going to delete that one here, the one that doesn't have any content or retweet data. Like I say, I think that was just an anomaly which was put through when we were developing the retweet system. I think it might have been half working or something. So I've got rid of that one, so we only have 2. And now we're logging the right things, 2 true and the rest false. If we see that issue again, I'll just fix it later on, but I think it was just a one-off. Okay, so now we know whether it's a retweet or not. So now what we're going to do is get the name of the person who retweeted it. Now, just watch me type this out and I'll explain it afterwards. We're going to say retweeted by equals is retweet. So if is retweet is true, we're going to just take the post data dot posted by and then dot username like this. And then otherwise, so the colon case, so otherwise we're just going to make it null. Alright, so now retweeted by will either contain the username of the person who retweeted it, or it will contain null. And you'll see why we're doing that a little bit later on as we get down this function. But for now, all we need to know is this will either be null if it wasn't a retweet, or if it was retweeted, it will contain the username of the person who retweeted it. The next thing we want to do in here is to set this post data to be the retweet data if it's a retweet. So like I said, in these cases where it's a retweet, we don't have content for the post. We instead have a field which gives us all the data for the post that was retweeted. So we essentially want to say, if it's a retweet, don't render this post here, but instead render the post that I've retweeted. That'll probably make a bit more sense to you in a second, but all we're going to do is say post data equals, and we'll say is retweet. So if it is a retweet, we'll do a question mark, and then we're going to set it to post data dot retweet data. Otherwise, we're going to set it to just post data. So essentially, if it's a retweet, we're setting it to be the retweet data. If it's not a retweet, it will just be exactly what it was before. So we're going to have a problem at the moment, and I can show you why. If I refresh the page now, it's going to look terrible, and we're going to have all sorts of errors. The problem is, at the moment, I'll even set a breakpoint for you. Maybe it'll be a bit clearer that way. If I refresh the page, in the case of a retweet, we don't have the data we need, because if I go to post data, I can't do it yet. Let me set a breakpoint earlier on. That will probably make it easier. So if I set a breakpoint right at the start of the function, you'll see that in the case of a retweet, retweet data is just an ID. We haven't populated that yet. So remember, we had this sort of situation earlier on in the course. What we need to do is go and call populate on this part right here. So let's do that. Let's go back to our app.js real quick. Sorry, not app.js. Let's go to posts.js, the part which loads the posts. Where are we? So we need the get request. And what we're going to do is populate the retweet data. So retweet data. And now I'm going to restart the server. And I'm going to refresh the page. But this still won't work, but you'll see. So essentially, it looks good, right? But if you check the console, I'm sure we'll see some errors. User object not populated. So why are we seeing that? Well, just to make it a bit clearer, if I go and retweet this post right here, just so you can see which post I'm actually retweeting. So we should hopefully see this is the first post, but we're not going to see that. So see, it's not there. Essentially what it's done is it's exited there. And the reason we're not seeing that is because, in fact, let me just set a breakpoint and show you this way. This will be the best way. So I'll go to common.js. The good thing about using these messages is we can just search for this in our code if you need to see where we are, where it's breaking, I mean. So I'll search for that, and it takes me right here. So I'll set a breakpoint there, and I will refresh the page. And you can see posted by is an ID, so we need to populate that. And the reason is post data contains retweet data, right? Or by this point we've already overwritten it. We changed it here. But post data is this is essentially the retweet data, and you can see we've populated this, great, but then inside of that there's all sorts of things that we need to populate as well. So we essentially need to populate the data from inside of the data we've populated, if that makes sense. So we populated this data, but inside of this there is other data that we need to populate. So how do we do that? Well, I'll show you that in the next video.